This is the continuing Bloodline Invaders Series. In part 6, this is the Winged Serpent. The journey and quest continues. I will tell you, there will probably be a large majority of people who, if they watch this completely in both parts, this is part 1, that you're going to probably feel confused, probably pissed off, perplexed, disorientated, bewildered. Because, folks, here's the bottom line to all this. What you and I were raised on, in fact, I will say this, for millennia, the human race, the human species has been deceived, they have been enslaved, and whoever the slave masters are, this is what my quest is. And trust me on this one. You are not your own possession. You have been bought. There is a price, not the price that you were thinking. No, folks, this is much, much, much more nefarious. So this is the known universe taken by Hubble over a number of years. Take a look at it, folks. This is an all intent and purpose reality. Doesn't exist anything beyond what you see right here. This is the entire known universe. My question is this God? Really? Ask yourself. Because I haven't seen any God here on this planet in a very, very long time. So are we living inside a God? I don't know, but what I do know is this. My quest began when I realized that what I had been taught was a lie, made up. I'm talking about religion. And so when I began to seek in finding the truth, I had to define, well, what is the truth? Now, I've heard a number of different things. I thought this one was good. Justice is truth in action. I've heard another that says truth is the highest form of all realities. I'm not sure exactly what truth is, because our species, our culture of the human race, we don't know what the truth is either. Oh, you'll have a lot of people saying to you, I know what truth is. But really, it comes down to this. What I have been able to find out is that there are two stories. Now, we have thing 1 and thing 2. Thing 1 is one side of the story. Thing 2 is the other side of the story. But here's the deal. They're both of the same thing. So if they're both of the same thing, no matter if you have thing 1 or thing 2, no matter how you go approach it at the end, you're still going to be part of a thing. And so what we're going to attempt to do here in this program is maybe begin to strip away the so-called accepted norm. Because, folks, there are two stories. There's a different history. A history you and I haven't been taught. A history that has been purposely blotted out. This program is about the light bearer and dragon. Are they myth or are they fact? It's going to be very hard, as you see, to distinguish between myth and fact. Did you know that there was a second Eve? Oh, yeah. So let's talk about the serpent. Good and bad. This is Carticus. Anyone in the medical field knows what this is. And you have here, as you can see, two serpents on a pole adorned with wings. Now, you may have been taught that this was merely a symbolism. It's much, much deeper. Is DNA good or bad? How can you have a heaven if there's no bad? How can you have a hell if there's no good? How do you know what is good is actually the good and not the bad? And how do you know that the bad has not been basically maligned to be the good? You don't. So when we talk about the serpent throughout all cultures, what is in fact the truth is that the snake, the serpent, deals with wisdom and healing. Shows up through many, many, many other religions and cultures. The fact of the matter is that when you begin to look at what the double serpent actually means, it has a far different meaning than what you have been taught, particularly if you've been taught Christianity. Yep, it is a fact. So if we have these things that have been changed, then the question is why? So what I have been able to find, folks, and through a lot of reading, is that one serpent represents wisdom and knowledge. Two serpents represent healing, the double helix. And if you look up here, you can actually see, isn't this odd? Did the creator of this here planet decide to take a selfie? I don't know. But I do know this, there is a connection, a deep, deep connection that goes back to the beginning. Everywhere in all cultures, you will find the serpent. And if you do your reading and if you do your studying, you will find that the serpent is not what we have been taught. It's not what the Christian story has been. No, the serpents represent wisdom and healing. In this depiction, the serpents are carrying souls to heaven. So which is right? Now, you can't have two identical emblems representing two contrasting points of view. But who's right? Who's wrong? Who took what from whom? There's two sides to the story, no doubt. The question that has to be asked is the story that you were taught, is it the right story? Because, folks, there are those in power that have been in power for a very long time that have taken painstaking steps to confuse the story. And when you talk about hell, let me just put it out there. Hell is man-created, man-made, mind only. No, that's going to really get some of you. But trust me, it's nothing more than a myth. It's designed to control, it's designed to subdue, and it's a design to dominate. No foundation of reality. In fact, most of what you see in the representation of hell is nothing more that came out of the Dark Ages in Europe. This is the result of a perverted point of view that has been incorporated into a religion. So I ask you, is the dragon Satan or is the dragon a servant? You might be surprised, and I would not bet your life on your answer. What we do know is this. When it comes to the dragon and Christianity, it is replete in the foundation of Christianity. The dragon, the reptile, is so well a part of Christendom, you cannot separate the two. And what you're about to see here is probably going to shock you. Because something is in fact missing. Of the story, we try to go to religion. And we try to see, well, what does religion tell us of the story? Well, I like what the Eskimos had to say when the first missionaries got up there. If I did not know God and sin, would I go to hell? And the priest says, no, not if you did not know. And the Eskimo, in the most purest of wisdom responds, then why did you tell me? It's a death sentence. I like what Running Hawk of Lakota Nation wrote. Religion is for people who are afraid of hell. Spirituality is for people who've already been there. Raise your hands if you have been in through hell. Now, I see a lot of them. Mine's raised as well. Gandhi, I would say that he was very much a spiritual man. He said it best, and I happen to agree with him. God has no religion. God is not a Christian. God is not a Jew. God is not a Muslim. God is not a Hindu. You getting it? So who has the real God? Are you the one who's going to puff out your chest and say, my religion is the only true religion? Really? Really? And what makes you say that? Oh, because I got a book. Yeah, guess what? They all got a book. We can easily forgive a child who's afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Oh, it's Plato. And when we look at this, my question, who's God? Is this the Hebrew God or the Christian God? It can't be both. No, 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 no. Can't be both. So let's talk about what has happened, particularly in the last 2,000 years. Now, if you go by the doctrine that's out there, that the church is the authority and the seat of the representation of God, Christ. Well, here's the problem with Christianity. The first thing that the church decided to do was they were going to violate the very commandment that God had given, and that was the Sabbath was to remain holy. Oh no, but Christians couldn't leave it there. No, they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Why did they change it to Sunday? Because it's the true God to whom they worship. Something went wrong at some point. Was there a change? Was this the beginning of this fundamental change? Now, many of you don't know who this is, do you? Well, I'm not going to tell you just yet. But I do believe that this may be the key point of a change in our history. My question is, why this? This building, this people's place to come and worship the true God is built in the image of the true God. Doubt me? As I kept telling you, there's a different history, a different truth here. One that you're not going to like. One that most will absolutely run away from. Oh, they'll call me a heretic. Hey, but there's been many heretics before. The fact of the matter is, you cannot deny what in fact you see. This building was built and dedicated to the true God for which this religion worships. I know it sounds hard. But there's always two interpretations. And you have to remember this. This is the way it's been set up. The question becomes, which one are you going to accept? For the longest time, it has always been rumored that there were giants. Now, I happen to know for a fact that they were. Worked with the Smithsonian Institute. I can tell you there are giants still here. And when we find that the archaeological record shows, in fact, that there was a race of beings, of which I still think many of them are still here, this gone, how shall we say, off the grid, then you have to ask yourself, if that's true, then how much more is true? Again, this is up to interpretation. But what we do know is something is not right. When I chose Christianity, I took it at face value, accepting the words that were written on there, and only studying that was within the context of the book. But what I have found out is that Christianity is an amalgamation of many different religions and beliefs. In fact, it goes back to a character many of you read in your Sunday school, Nimrod. Let me tell you about Nimrod. Nimrod, it is legend in the myths, he became a Nephilim, became half human, half fish, had enormous superpowers. In fact, it is said that he actually wore the same garment of the Adam. And within this garment gave him transformative powers. Well, one thing we do know is this. The symbolisms that were very much at the time of Nimrod, Babel, we see today. Now, I'm not going to get into that in this program, but folks, the pine cone, I will leave it at that. It's been right in front of us. Oh, hidden, but the way I have understood the rules work on this, I don't know, spiritual scale, whatever you want to call it, is that you can't do something unbeknownst to the victim. You have to basically put the signs out there that you're doing this, so that when it comes point of their defense of accusing these gods, the gods will say, well, we did this out in plain sight. We know this, the story has been weaved from the past. And as a master weaver does in building a very beautiful tapestry, you weave many different colors to make a pattern, to make a story. So what we have learned thus far, what we have taken as the religious symbols, come from a far different beginning. It's replete. The symbolism is everywhere. In fact, it's plastered throughout. You ever go to the Vatican, you will see it. But there's something more. And this is what it is. It's precepts upon precepts, plans upon plans, ideas upon ideas, constructs upon constructs. When we see this, we see a representation of Christ and the cross. But folks, it's much, much more. It's not even what you think. And by the way, this is neither male nor female, but yet represents both. I keep telling you there's another history here. There is another history. You think not? It's right there in front of you. Always has been. The battle of dominance. The dominance for who we worship, who we adore, who we bow down to. Question is why? Why upside down? So this is Lucifer. So my question is, this is Eve. Who's seducing her? And by the way, folks, when I say seduce, yeah, all the way to penetration and impregnation. What's going on here? You care to elaborate? Stop and look at this. It's not the story we've been told. But no matter how you look at this, the dragons are displayed at the Vatican, and they're even in some of the crest of the Pope. Why? Why? Ask yourself why. Because the fact of the matter is, they've always been here. Now, this was a picture of a creature that was taken down in Arizona in 2017. Folks, these creatures have never left. You've got to realize they're here. They're here among us. Always have been. And when you talk about the foundation of a faith, why is it always done with blood and torture? Why is it that righteousness is done by torment? For whose pleasure? Why our blood? And if you want to be very honest, the demons have been here all along, if that's what you want to call it. The Jesuits have known this. In fact, I can tell you this, as I've told you before, the modern concept of hell today was born out of the Dark Ages. I always found this one odd. If you have the name of the true God, why did you misspell it? And so the question becomes this, my friends. We have a lot of history, but the history has not come from one place or one source. No, it's come from a lot of different sources. This is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, because I can tell you, the rabbit hole only gets deeper.